All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Washington Commanders and their win over the Cardinals. So I did think that this game was going to be back and forth. And I did say probably take the over in this game. And it looked like that was going to be the case early on. But this game was all Commanders. They dominated this game. And the Cardinals have put up a couple of lackluster performances these last couple weeks after, that huge win against the Rams, a team that's owned them. They won, 41-10. And then these last couple weeks, they've struggled offensively. They did run the ball better. James Conner had a good game, but that was really it. I mean, the Cardinals' offense was non-existent really throughout most of this game. But to kind of go through it, I mean, the Cardinals, they started off with the ball. They went 9 plays, 55 yards down the field, and this was on 4th and goal. Kyler Murray connected with Marvin Harrison Jr. for a 2-yard touchdown, so that put them up 7-0. Commanders answered immediately on their first drive as they continue to not punt. They went 9 plays, 70 yards down the field. Brian Robinson Jr. scores a 6-yard touchdown to make it 7-7. Then the Cardinals punted. Commanders score yet another touchdown to put them up 14-7. And this was a McNichols 27-yard touchdown. So Jeremy McNichols was, getting not really the start, but was the backup running back in this game because of Austin Eckler being out after suffering the concussion last week. So Commanders scored again. Cardinals punted. Then Jane Daniels threw a pick. So still no punts. Throws an interception. This was intended for McLaurin, so that got intercepted. The Cardinals did nothing with it. Then the Commanders actually did punt. The Cardinals, however, turned it over on downs. It was on 4th and 1 from the Commanders' 35, and Kyler Murray got sacked for a 7-yard loss. And then the Commanders kicked the field goal. Seibert, a 45-yard field goal to make it 17-7 at the half. Then to open up the second half, Commanders went right down the field and scored. There was a defensive pass interference call for 47 yards, and Jaden Daniels scored a rushing touchdown from 9 yards out. So that made it 24-7. Cardinals punted. Commanders kicked a field goal. Seibert kicked a 38-yard field goal, so that made it 27-7. Then the Cardinals did answer with a touchdown. James Conner from 6 yards out, so that made it 27-14. Then the Commanders scored again. Jaden Daniels connected with Terry McLaurin, and they went for the 2 and got it with Zach Ertz. So that made it 35-14. Cardinals fumbled, and then the Commanders scored once again. Another Jeremy McNichols touchdown from 7 yards out, and that made it 42-14. That was the final score. Jaden Daniels on the day went 26 of 30 for 233 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Brian Robinson Jr. had 21 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. Jeremy McNichols had 2 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels also had a rushing touchdown. So 4 rushing touchdowns in the game for the Commanders. Olamide Zaccheaus was actually the leading receiver for the Commanders. He had 6 receptions for 85 yards. Terry McLaurin, 7 for 52 and a touchdown. Noah Brown had 3 for 26. Zach Ertz, 3 for 22. Fumble recovery by Frankie Louvu. That was one of the takeaways they had from the Cardinals in this game. Commanders' defense had 4 sacks. Defense played well. Kyler Murray only went 16-22 for 142 yards and a touchdown. James Conner had a good game, 18 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 for 45 and a touchdown. Michael Wilson had a fumble loss in this game. Trey Benson and DJ Dallas both had fumbles, but they were not lost. And the Cardinals' defense had no sacks. Matt Prater, 2 for 2 and extra points. I picked him up in fantasy and because he was doing well this year, and of course he only gets 2 fantasy points for me. But another impressive performance by the Commanders. They improved to 3-1 on the season, and they are in sole possession of first place in the NFC East. So how about that? And I had them around 3-4 wins, and they're already at 3. So when I did that, I didn't feel great about it because then I'm like, I feel like I feel like I'm gonna end up being wrong, and I'm definitely gonna be wrong about the Commanders. But my thing is this: it's really because of the defense. I mean, they could have lost the Bengals game, they could have lost the Giants game, and be 1-3 right now. But that's not the case here. Those are hypotheticals. They're 3-1. Now you look at their schedule coming up. You got the Browns at home, which the way the Browns are playing, and we'll get to them this week. You could definitely win that game. At the Ravens is going to be tough. That one they probably lose, but who knows? I'm going to pencil that in as a loss. But then you got the Panthers at home. You got the Bears at home, at the Giants, home against the Steelers. I mean, this team is, this team could be sitting at like 7-3. A little after the midway point. And you look at the other teams in the division. The Giants, like I hate to say it, but they're kind of a lost cause. I think this is going to be a really ugly season for them. I mean, it already is, but it's going to continue that way. And then you look at Dallas and Philly, and we're going to get into Philly in a little bit, but they aren't that impressive. Now, Philly, I thought, turned the corner when they beat the Saints on the road without A.J. Brown, without Devontae Smith for some of that game. But now they came crashing down against the Bucs. But they were without their top two weapons once again. So you think once you get A.J. Brown back, you get Devontae Smith back, things change there. But, I mean, the defense didn't play well. Again, we'll get to that. I mean, I think the Commanders, they're going to carve up the Cowboys and the Eagles' defenses. I mean, the Cowboys, too. I mean, they haven't been overly impressive. I mean, I thought the Week 1 game against the Browns, I was impressed, but the Browns are just not good offensively. The Cowboys are a team that can't really run the football. The defense has been getting shredded these last several games. Well, not the Giant game, but the previous two against the Ravens and against the Saints. The Commanders, you look and you see how they're playing on offense. This offense is going to shred those defenses. Both the Cowboys and the Eagles. And the Commanders are a team that plays well against the Eagles. Last year, not great against the Cowboys, but that's going to change. That is going to change because the Cowboys are not the same team that they've been, the same regular season team that they've been in years past. So you really got to like what the Commanders are doing. For me, I was not a big fan of the Dan Quinn hire. I still think the defense had a lot of work that needs to be done, but Jane Daniels has been the difference maker here. I mean, they could, if they didn't have Jane Daniels playing quarterback last Monday against the Bengals, they probably lose. He was impressive in that game. With the Giants, I mean, if the Giants had a kicker, they win that game, but it's not the case here. Jane Daniels really has made a difference. He's playing really well. Right now, he's the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And we're going to see when him and Caleb Williams face off. That's going to be a fun game. But he's playing good football. And it looks like the Commanders got their guy. And, watching Hard Knocks as a Giant fan, they love Jaden Daniels. They would have loved to have gotten him. But unfortunately, it's because of Tommy Cutlets. It's because of Tommy Cutlets that, him winning those games, that kind of hurt their draft positioning. Because they could have been a team that finished in the top 3. But, they got those wins from Tommy Cutlets and Tyrod Taylor. And, look, Malik Neighbors is a special player. But the Giants are really in a tough spot right now because, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback going forward. And Jane Daniels would have been great if he was a Giant with Brian Dable. But, he's doing well with Cliff Kingsbury. Maybe that's what Cliff Kingsbury has to be as an offensive coordinator. As a head coach, the Cardinals were good. It's just kind of like Mike McDaniel, another guy we'll get into later in the show, where they start off fast, but then they finish slow and, they fall out. Like the playoff game against the Rams, that was bad. But yeah, as an offensive coordinator, maybe that's where he has to stay. And then for Dan Quinn, again, I wasn't a big fan of the hire, but I will acknowledge that those first few years in Atlanta, the Falcons were making not not 2015. 2015 they started off 5-0 and then they finished like 9-7. They got off to a fast start and then they kind of fell off. But they went to the Super Bowl the second year, could have won it, made the playoffs the following year as well. So, he did start off good as a head coach. It's just that those last couple of years in Atlanta wasn't good. And that's why and then how the Cowboys defense performed in the playoff game against the Packers, that didn't sit well with me either. So that's why I was like, I am not a big fan of the Dan Quinn hire. But you know what? He's got these guys playing well right now. And that defense is playing well. This is a good Cardinals offense. And they shut him down. Other than the running game, they shut him down. They shut down Kyler Murray. Kyler could not get anything going through the air. And you would think he would have been able to because the Commanders' back end is not very good. But it was good here. So, yeah, the Commanders, they're legit. Now, in terms of where I would rank them, I mean, I still don't look at them as a top 5 team, but they're definitely might have to be in the top 10. There's still other teams that I would put ahead of them right now in the top 5, but I would say they're top 10. I mean, look at how many points they're scoring each week, or these last 2 weeks. 38 last week, 42 this week. I mean, that's top 10 team material right there. So, yeah, I mean, that's really my thoughts. I mean, the Commanders, I think, you don't want to jump the gun, obviously, but you definitely want to put them on notice. Definitely got to put them on notice with what they're doing right now. So, but let me know what you guys think, though, about the game. What were some of your takeaways from it? But, man, the Cardinals, these last couple weeks, yeesh. Not what you want if you're a Cardinals fan. So, but, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. So, we're going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we will then discuss the Eagles, another NFC East team. We'll talk about them and their 33-16 loss to the Buccaneers. And that's what we'll do when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.